مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبي.
So one can ask oneself the question, how do I come to know God? And the scholars always debated that how much can reason come to know God? And they said that reason is a means to knowing God. But it's a limited means. It's a limited means because we affirm that things have reality. Right? That in this life, when we look at things, they have reality. This is a wall. Right? And if we look at particulars, we know that things have realities and that reality is knowable. We do not live in a chaotic reality. Right? Imagine if you woke up and suddenly you're in a different place. No, if you go to sleep in bed, you'll wake up in bed, unless something happens. Right? There is an order to our perception of reality. And as human beings, we have no choice but to rely on our perception of things. And from that, they say that if you use your reason, reason will point us to the fact that there is one God. And they use an example. And this is a classical example. You may have perhaps heard about it. But I'll tell it to you the way I heard it from one of my teachers in Damascus, Sheikh Adib Kallas. He said, imagine if a family was going by ship in the old days. And there's a big storm. And the ship sank because of the storm. And the only one who survived was a little boy. And the boy landed on a small island. On that island, the monkeys saw this child and they decided to take care of the baby. And they let the sheep or the goats give milk to the baby. So he grew up amongst the monkeys and the goats and never saw any human being till he became an adult. And one day, while he was on the trees looking at the sea, because he remembered that I came from the sea, when he suddenly saw what we know to be a boat come to the shore, and a person who looked like him came off the boat. And he was wearing something on his head. He took it off. He put it on a rock. And he started washing his face and hands. And we know that what he was doing, he was making wudu. He was making the ritual ablution. And then he faced in a direction and he started making some motions. He was praying. But of course, the young man didn't know this. But then the man got back on the boat and went. But there was something that was left on the rock. When the young man, the one who was raised by the monkeys and fed by the goats, he went to the rock, he saw a shiny object. What was the shiny object? We know it's a watch. It was a watch. That watch, he looks at it, and it's very strange. He'd never seen anything like that. He'd never seen metal before. But this watch looks very well made. It's not like he'd learned how to make a spear and other things that he used for tools, but they were clumsy. This watch was made very, very beautifully. And it had these little hands that were moving in an ordered way. Immediately the young man, using his natural reason, would say that this thing, this watch, was made by someone. The watch has a watchmaker. Why? Because it has order. It's clearly made deliberately. It has perfection. And anything that is made deliberately, that has order, that has perfection, it has a maker. And if the young boy started thinking about the watchmaker, he said, well, the watchmaker must be alive, must exist. Because if they don't exist, they wouldn't have made the watch. And if they exist, they must also be alive. They must know what they're doing. So this watchmaker must have knowledge. They chose to make this watch in this deliberate way, so they must have will. They were able to make what they wanted to make, so they must have power. And the same applies to when we look at creation. When we look at creation, anything, if you look at these prayer beads of mine, anything that you see that is deliberate, you say, this is created. It's made. It has a creator. It has a maker. And the same principle applies to the whole universe. That there's deliberateness, there's order, there's a creator. And the mind can come to a certain conclusions about the qualities of that creator, the one we would name God. That God exists. They have life, they have knowledge, they have will, they have power. But questions still remain. That I want to know more about that creator. But I also want to know, how do I turn to the creator? How do I relate to the creator? And that's where revelation comes. And revelation tells us details about the creator. And in the final revelation, God chose to manifest himself by his names and attributes more fully than in any previous revelation. So the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, tells us that God has 99 names, 100 less one. Whoever encompasses them will enter into paradise. Allah Most High tells us in the Quran, وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى. Gods are the most beautiful of names. So call him by them. Where do we find out about God? One of the many unique aspects of the Quran is that the Quran tells us who God is. What are God's attributes? What is the nature of God? And it tells us how the human being, how creation can relate to God in ways that they can come to know God. And what is the potential of religion? The true potential of religion is not simply that you believe in God. It's not simply that you worship God. The true potential of religion is that you come to know God. But not just to know God in some absent kind of way, but as described by our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, when he was asked by the angel Gabriel, that what is the perfection of faith? What is spirituality? Ihsan. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, Al-ihsan an ta'bud Allah ka'annaka tarah. The perfection of faith, or we can say spirituality, is that you worship God as though you behold him, that you submit to God as though you behold him, that you be in a state of adoration of God as though you behold him. Whether you're in prayer and devotion or you're living, that you know God so palpably that you are more conscious of God than you are of your own very existence. And this is how we can come to know God. We exercise our reason, we reflect, but we have this tremendous divine gift of revelation by which God tells us about himself, and through which we can come to know God, to experience God, and to behold God.